this video in 4K. So you're probably looking for a video on how to install a complete exhaust system on your Indian Touring. You want to reduce heat and get more performance. You've definitely come to the right place. Welcome back, Bikeaholics. Ryan Erlacher here, lawabidingbiker.com. I thank you for checking back in. That's right, Bikeaholics, coming at you with a completely free tutorial video on how to install headers and mufflers on a 2014 and newer Indian Touring model. That includes your Chieftain, Springfield, and Roadmaster models. And just so you know, in this particular project, we took a set of Freedom Performance true dual headers with Sharktail slip-on mufflers and installed them on a 2018 Indian Chieftain Limited. Have no fear what aftermarket muffler system you get or headers. The processes are very similar. All right, make sure you stick around to the end of the video because after we show you how to install, I'm going to give you an actual sound comparison between the Indian Thunderstroke Stage 1 mufflers and headers and the Freedom Performance that we're installing in this video. And if you appreciate this completely free video and all the free videos that we put out on this channel, I will provide affiliate links in the description below to some of the products we talk about. No additional cost to you, but if you do click through and make a purchase, we do get a small kickback. It helps directly support this channel. And yes, after you add headers or mufflers to your Indian motorcycle, you will need to remap your EFI or electronic fuel injection so that your bike runs optimally and you get added performance benefits. There is no reason that you need to pay a dealership to do this. You can do it right in your very own shop or garage. In fact, we have a video that makes it very easy for you. It's how to install a Power Commander V EFI tuner on your Indian motorcycle. Link to that video in the description below, and I'll also try to pop a card on the screen for you. And with that said, what do you say we get wrenching, huh? But before we get our hands dirty, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Every time that is hit along with that bell icon, another biker joins the revolution. We would love to have you part of it. Okay, so the first thing he's going to do here is just pop this side panel. It's just got a couple rubber grommets. You just pull it out of the way there. All right, next he's moving in to unplug this wire. Just got a tab on the top you pull, as that's connected to the saddlebag. All right, we're just going to remove the saddlebag here. Just open the lid there, and then you've got your two clips there. Just pop them both up, and the saddlebag gets out of the way there. And of course, you pop the side cover, the wire, and removing the saddlebag on this side. And with a 6mm hex head, we're going to start removing this seat. Got one rear bolt here. All right, with all those bolts out of the way, he can lift his seat off and get it out of the way now. All right, and so we're just moving up under the rear of the bike here. On both sides, there's two bolts. They're your exhaust supports. And you just got a 13mm wrench is what he's using on those. The bottom one out there, and I'll just move up to the top. And just finishing up there, and of course, we've also got to do the same thing on the right side. All right, so on the right side here, it's a little bit more difficult to get into because of the antenna bracket. So what we found is a shallow well 13mm and a wobble on it so you can get around the rear of the tire, and we'll show you what we're going to do here to get this off. So he's just coming in underneath there, and again, it's just because of that antenna bracket and everything's in the way, but that combination seems to be working well. That way you can avoid removing the rear wheel. And again, this is just the exhaust bracket on the right side. Two bolts. All right, and then once both of those bolts are removed, you can actually remove the antenna bracket there. All right, so we're on the right side of the bike, and you can see right there, 1/4 inch nut driver. That's a clamp that actually clamps the heat shield on. And we're going to be working, there's multiple clamps. You just have to find them and loosen them all, get them all the way backed out so we can remove all the heat shields here. That's what he's working on. So this one, you don't need to back out all the way. It will just, it's loose enough now, it'll slide off when we take the muffler off. All right, and he's got a 15mm. He's going to start loosening. This is your right rear exhaust clamp. Obviously, you got one on both sides. This is the main exhaust clamp that we've got to get loosened so we can pull that muffler off. All right, and he looks like he's got that plenty loose now. All right, and now with that clamp loose and the heat shield, he can just rock this muffler, and there you go. We got to do the same on the other side. All right, and he's just on the left side of the bike now, going up underneath with that nut driver, and there's just a heat shield clamp just like the other side. All right, and that's the main muffler clamp there, just like on the right side, but this is the left side. Get that nice and loose so we can yank that left side muffler off there. Okay, with both those loose, he's just taking off this left side muffler. Just give it a good rock. You may have to twist it back and forth. And I'll get that out of the way. All right, we're on the left side of the bike here with a 13 millimeter. This is the support bracket for the crossover exhaust. The nut is actually welded on the back side of that if you get up underneath the bike. And so you're just going to get this loosened here. And again, that bolt will back all the way out. All right, you got that bolt backed out of there. All right, and we're just moving over to the crossover, the main crossover clamp, 15 millimeter is what he's getting up on there. All right, you got that good and loose, and that should be able to release our crossover here. All right, and so with the 15 millimeter, there's just a main clamp there, kind of connects your catalytic converter to your exhaust. Again, just a big old clamp, and he's gonna loosen that up. So there's another bolt that bolts it to your frame. Basically, just swing your heat shield out of the way because we already loosened that, of course. So I just want to show you the clamp we're actually talking about to get you a good angle of it here. That's it, and that actually connects to your frame. Of course, there's a nut on the bottom. All right, and with a 13 millimeter box end, it's kind of a pain. You just got to get up in there. That's what he's working on. The bottom is welded on the nut, so you just got to get up top here and get this bolt out, and that's what he's working on. All right, and he got it loose, and he can just back the rest of it out with his fingers there. That's what he's doing, and that'll release that from the frame there. All right, and he's just finishing taking that heat shield clamp off for this main heat shield on the right side, and he's releasing that one all the way, and he can back that heat shield off there. All right, with a 5 millimeter hex head T-handle, there's 2 bolts up in here that he's going to remove because we've got to get these cooling fins basically out of the way so we have access to the jug where the headers bolt. Just moving down to the bottom one there, and that's just kind of the chunk there that comes out, you can see. Once he gets those loose, and again, all that does is gives you access to where the headers bolt to the cylinder there. And you can see that gives us access up inside there. All right, and doing the same to the front jug there, and just getting that front one out of the way there. And again, we have access now. All right, and moving in, we're gonna remove, you see he's working on there, there's just 2 bolts. We're working on getting the master cylinder, the rear brake master cylinder out of the way. We're just going to start getting some stuff like this and the floorboards out of our way so we can get this exhaust system off. And there's just 2 bolts to remove that master cylinder. All right, and he got that first one backed out, and he'll just get it out of the way, and you can see he's got 1 more there. He's going to get his wrench up on there. And again, just working underneath the floorboards there. All right, and he's supporting that rear master cylinder because that is the last bolt that supports it as he backs out his last bolt. All right, and so we're going to work on this floorboard here, and you've got 2 bolts. He's pointing at 1 right there and 1 up in there. That's what we're going to work on right now. And with a 5/16 hex head is what those are. He's got it on a nice long extension there. Give him some clearance. He's going to back those out. All right, and he's removing that last bolt. I'm going to remove that master cylinder. It's still connected to the brake pedal, but it still gives us some more leadway because we're going to kind of have to pop this up through the engine guards and get it out of our way. So just gives us the ability to pop that brake pedal down and all that if we need to. And he's just moving it up underneath there. We're really just trying to get it out of the way enough. Just be careful of your fender. Get it out of the way enough so that we can get the exhaust off. And there you go. We moved it forward, and we can just kind of set it on lift there, and it is out of our way now. Okay, so what we're working on now is getting access to the other end of our O2 sensors. Of course, our O2 sensors go into the pipes coming off the heads. This is the front one, and we're on the left side of the bike, and this is where it actually plugs in. So he's just going to clip a zip tie here, and you can see that gave us access to the plug. All right, and it's just a push and pull. You push the tab and pull, and that releases again. That goes over to our front head pipe to our O2 sensor. That way we don't twist the wires up when we're backing it out. Okay, so moving in here, this is the rear head O2 sensor. It just plugs up. You can see right underneath where the seat would go. And again, just a push-pull, and he's getting that backed out of there. All right, and we're at a point now where we're gonna remove the head pipes from the head here, and a 13 millimeter. There's 2 bolts. Of course, this is the front head we're looking at. He's gonna move in there with his wrench. And he's gonna start backing. There's 1 on top and kind of 1 on bottom. Of course, front and rear head pipes is what we're working on. It's the same on both. All right, and the easiest way to get the other one is to come in from the other side of the bike. All right, and just with a ratchet, he is able to get a ratchet up in there to get that other one He's just backing that out. All right, and so he just went to the rear. Of course, 2 bolts or nuts back there that he removed off the studs. And now we can work on removing this exhaust system. All right, and he's just working on, you just kind of got to manipulate it, wiggle it back and forth, and he's working on getting this system off here. And they're just working together. You can see you just got to manipulate it and rock it a little bit. You can see they work together there and are able to get that system off. Just rock it back and forth till you get it free. All right, and of course you've got O2 sensors. We've taken that one out, and then that's why we released the other sides of those. And with his 14mm wrench there, he'll get this one out. We will be reusing these. All right, and with his 13mm socket, he's going to remove this stock bracket that goes to the frame, 2 bolts, because for our Freedom Performance pipes, we're not going to be reusing this. And just finishing up removing the second bolt there. So this bracket comes in your Freedom Performance kit, and we're going to reuse the stock bolts, but that is a new bracket that comes in the kit. Just getting them finger started there, and then we'll get the 13mm wrench on them. And just getting his socket on there, tight, another quarter turn, crank him down, you should be good to go. All right, and he's got that bracket on there, and feel free as you do anything to put thread lock on if you choose to do that. All right, so he's got our stock O2 sensors. His little anti-seize grease we're going to put on there. Is what they recommend around the threads. And then we've got a reducer bung basically. You could put wideband O2 sensors on these particular pipes, but this reduces it down to the 12mm. All right, and with it reduced down, he can now go into the pipe there. And with his 14mm wrench, he's just tightening this down and just finishing up there tight. Get another little quarter turn on it and good to go. And he did his front head. He's doing his rear header pipe now. Of course, some anti-seize. Put the reducer on it there. And same procedure, he'll tighten it down as much as he can with his fingers and then crank it down with a wrench. Okay, so we've got our O2 sensors on the pipes, and we're going to position them back in place. Of course, this is the new Freedom Performance front header basically. And we're going to get both nuts started up in there. We're just going to get everything finger started now. You don't want to tighten anything down until the end. We'll need the exhaust to have some play because we still got clamps and we got to clamp it to the frame. And Brian from the other side is just working that bottom one, getting it finger started. And we are reusing the exhaust gaskets. They're pretty new still. You can reuse them. Of course, if you want to get new ones, do that ahead of time. But we inspected ours. They look good. So this is the crossover that comes in the kit. It comes with a new crossover clamp you can see there. Just make sure you position it like he has it so the nut side there is down. So on the other side of the bike, we got Rick over there supporting the crossover, and then Brian has the hardware in his hand. This all comes in your kit, bolt, and a nut. He's going to put that into the clamp here. And again, he's just getting it finger started at this point. All right, so we're going to use on this side to get the crossover secured. We're going to use the stock bolt. It does come with the nut in the kit because the other nut was actually welded on the stock exhaust clamp. So he's going to get this up in place there. And of course the bolt goes through. All right, and it's just on the underside there, the backside, getting that nut started. There we go, that's supported now. All right, and with a 13mm socket, he's going to start tightening stuff down. We're going to tighten the front header down. And so what they're doing is adjusting this down evenly. So he just put about 5 turns on the top one, and Brian is getting the bottom one there. He's going to do about 5 turns. You want to tighten it down evenly. You wouldn't want to just crank one side down and then the other because it won't seat on that gasket. It's a crush gasket. And so you want even pressure going into that. So just they're handing the wrench back and forth and taking turns. So Rick's going back up. He's going to get a little more on his. The other thing you want to note is you do not need to over tighten these. You will snap those studs. Guys, do it. It is a gasket, a crush gasket, and just get them so they start getting snug down and leave it. And you'll be fine. It will seal up just fine. And then ride it about 1,000 miles, and then you can come back because it's going to seat on there and loosen up. They always do. Come back in about 1,000 miles and give them another turn or two. And Rick's just finishing up there, and you can see he's not using a ton of force there. And those are plenty tight for now. All right, and they got both nuts on that front header snug down now. All right, and with 13mm socket and box end wrench there, they're going to go ahead and tighten this crossover clamp that goes to the frame now. And because of the kind of nut this is, it does go on rough all the way. And that's so that it clamps on really good and locks on there. All right, so he's got his crossover clamp position. It's 11 millimeter, and he's going to start tightening that. You can kind of see how you don't want it straight down. It would drag, plus it would look cruddy. You kind of want to angle it in as much as you can. All right, and he's just finishing up there, just getting it snug, and our crossover is clamped down now. Okay, we're on the other side of the bike. You see the crossover coming out there. Remember, we had only finger start this, so 13 millimeter, and we got Brian on the underneath side holding that nut on the back side. And we'll get this cranked down and snug. Tighten about another quarter turn. All right, and we're just going back up with our cooling fins there, the section that comes out. Get that in place, and then again 5 millimeter, just tighten down the 2 bolts in between there. All right, and once that's in position, just as 5 millimeter T-handle there, hex head, in the gap there, tightening those down. So this is the new front pipe heat shield, and we've already pre-installed the clamps. It all comes in your kit, of course. You can see how he's lining the clamps up there, all facing down, so they'll be access to the bottom, and then of course on the front one here will access to the front. And just make sure you get all those lined up the way you want them, and then we can put it on the pipe. All right, and that's what they're working together there, just getting the clamps over the pipe, getting that front heat shield into place there. And you can see there, that's what we were talking about, those clamps lined up a certain way, so that one's to the front, and then all the other ones come out the bottom. All right, and so Brian just working on getting the heat shield started here. We're getting all the clamps fed through. And as we tighten these up, guys, this Freedom Performance is an 8 millimeter, but as we tighten them up, you barely just want to get these snug. They will not rattle. When the pipes heat up, they'll expand, and if you tighten them down too much, it will snap them as they heat up. So just barely snug. And Brian just working on the other hose clamps there, getting them all started and snug down just a bit. Okay, he's got his rear head pipe now and just feeding his O2 sensor through there, of course, and getting it lined up against the jug there. And again, make sure your crush washer is situated up in there good before you do that. And he's going to finger start his nuts up in there, of course. Goes on just like the front one. All right, so over on the left side of the bike, just going to plug back in our rear O2 sensor there. Only goes one way. Just make sure you hear it click there. All right, moving up to the front of the bike. On the left side here, we're going to plug in the front O2 sensor. Again, only goes one way. Make sure you hear the click. And then we can zip tie that back down at some point. All right, and we've just finger started the head bolts there. We're not tightening them down yet because we've still got to line up this rear support here. So we've left the head loose there, just finger started those for the reason we want this loose back here. You can see that bolt he's holding comes in the kit. Has a square around it. That's because it's got a slot you're going to see. Coming off the actual head pipe, he's going to slide it in there. It slides down in the channel. And then it goes through the bracket, and of course a nut will go on the bottom side of that. And that's what he's got in his hand. Again, all comes in the kit. All right, and you're just holding it the top down so it doesn't turn with a screwdriver. That's a little trick. All right, and with a 9/16 box end there, he can finish tightening this down. Crank it down good and tight, another quarter turn. And just going back up there, of course, and he'll snug those bolts down on that exhaust flange. Again, don't over tighten them, just barely snug. All right, and we're gonna reuse these barrel clamps, basically exhaust clamps from the stock, and these are the new pipes, of course. Set it on his boot so he doesn't scratch it up. And he's just gonna work on getting this fitted over the new pipe. All right, and you're just working it down on there. And if you ever do, you can use some lube if you want. It does help get them on there. And if you need to, you can spread these clamps out a little more just with a straight slot screwdriver. And he's just finishing off with a rubber mallet to get it down on there. All right, we're gonna put back in this section of the cooling fins here, and there you see back there, there's 2 holes, and that correlates with the pins on the back side of this. So as he goes up in here, you're going to see he's going to line that up, make sure it gets in those 2 holes. Once he gets that lined up, of course, he's got his 2 bolts with the 5 millimeter in the slot there. So we've got the little section of crossover that has a heat shield, and Brian's already put the clamps in. There are bigger one and smaller ones. You can kind of see how it's pinched in there, so the smaller clamp worked there, and then he put a bigger one where it widens out in the back there. He's just getting those pre-installed. All right, and so Rick here has pre-installed his clamps too on this rear heat shield, and just like the front, he's going to get it in position, and he's just working all the clamps around. All right, he's got that in place now, and he can start tightening down the hose clamps. So like we say, they do use two different sizes. The one he has in his hand there is a smaller one. They have sizes on them, and that's a bigger one. We found, now that we tried to put the heat shield on, that the bigger one is actually going to work better up front. But again, the instructions say nothing about it, so you just have to trial and error a little bit. All right, he's got that bigger clamp up front now, and he's going to install this heat shield. So on these heat shield hose clamps, some of it is personal preference or necessity. We actually moved the center one, you can see, so it's facing up so we can get to it, because if we went down here trying to get between those pipes would not work. And we readjusted this one so it's facing to the rear. It was just easier for us to get that clamp started. So just situate them how you want it, but wanted to show you how we did it. And we're not tightening this heat shield clamp on the rear down yet, because we still got to have some play to fit the actual muffler in. All right, and we sprayed a little lubrication up in there, just some WD-40, and he's gonna just rotate and slip this muffler into place. And he's just twisting it and rocking a little bit to get it in place. And basically he's pushing it far enough so we can get these back brackets lined up. All right, in order to get these rear brackets lined up just right, the machining is off on these Freedom Performance mufflers. And so you see up on here, this is the left side, but we want to show you the beveled edge basically. All right, your heat shield's supposed to line up with that. So on this one, in order to get those to line up, we pushed it forward all the way up to the beveled edge, but it needed a whole bunch more. So what we ended up having to do to get this to fit is go over the beveled edge. We had our clamps loose and get that heat shield up, and you can see it's kind of fat. It's not sitting right up against that beveled edge. And that's just the way it's going to be, again, because the machining is off a little bit. So just something to be aware of. All right, and they're just working together here. The stock bolts we're going to use to get this bracket mounted on this right side muffler. All right, and so what they're doing is just working together here, getting this rear lined up. 13 millimeter. Of course, if you need to use the wobble head, you can to get around that rear tire. But they'll just get both of those stock bolts put back in to that bracket. All right, and on that top one is where he's using that wobble head on the socket to get around that rear tire situation there. Just finished tightening both those down. All right, so moving up underneath here, of course, 15 millimeter, that is the main clamp that clamps the muffler to the headers there, so to speak. And he'll get this snug down. And you don't have to over tighten, he's getting that snug. You can see about how much effort there. Be good to go. All right, so our heat shield, of course, we showed you that earlier with the different size clamps there, and we set them so that they'll be on the bottom for tightening. And he's just gonna slide that on for now. And we'll leave it right like that. All right, and he's got his muffler. We lubed it up a little bit in there to help us slide it on there, and he's just gonna work it into place here. Just lining up his brackets on the rear there. All right, and just like the other side, he's just working on that rear bracket, the two bolts in there. All right, and moving up underneath here, 15 millimeter, that main exhaust clamp that we're reusing, of course. And he's just getting that heat shield into place on the crossover and get those clamps seated down. This is the left side of the bike. And just to show you this too, on these Freedom Performance, that's about as good with the brackets and everything the way it is that we're gonna get the heat shield to line up with the rear muffler. So, all right, and a little tip or trick, because we've lost a fishtail before on mufflers like this, is there's a couple bolts that bolt the tip on there. We're removing both of them, one on the inside, one on the bottom. And we'll apply a little blue Loctite to make sure that they don't come out. That's what he did, put a little blue Loctite on it and back up in there. Again, one on the inside too. And just to show you guys, you will end up with a ton of extra heat shield clamps, different sizes that come in that kit. All right, so we're in a position where we're gonna put the floorboard back on. Your kit comes with a longer bolt and a spacer. All right, that spacer, you're gonna see he's gonna put it in there. It goes in between the floorboard and the frame, and then he's putting the longer bolt in there, and that's basically to space it out away from the exhaust a little bit. And he's just getting it started there. 5/16 hex head is what that is. You're gonna go and get his rear one started here. Again, don't forget to put that spacer in between the floorboard and the frame. Getting it all lined up there. And just add an extension for this one, makes it a little bit easier. Now that he's got them both started, he can tighten them down. All right, so they got this back lined up and just got the bolts finger started there. And he's gonna go in with his hex head and tighten this rear brake master cylinder down. All right, just going back up with the saddlebags. Don't forget to plug them in underneath the side panel there. Just working his saddlebags back into place there. And don't forget to latch them down inside. All right, and of course, after you get done working on your bike, get all those greasy fingerprints off everything. Bug Slide, our #1 go-to waterless motorcycle cleaner. Use the heck out of it. Chrome, paint, that denim paint, anywhere on your bike, good to go. And best of all, it puts a microscopic protective finish on everything, so it's easier to clean the next time you can get it. Of course, in the Law Abiding Biker store, lawabidingbiker.com/store, and I will link to it in the description below. Yeah, that was pretty funny because Brian's trying to talk on the phone. Are you cold? What happened? Quit touching the tip. Quit rubbing the tip.